Greg, I'm not gonna lie. That was the first time that played smoothly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every single time that always like comes in and it's like it ends up cutting off staticky for me. It plays fine in like the video, but for me it always comes in staticky. This time it was perfect. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was weird. Anyway, SeerNova Podcast, Season 2, Episode 18. We have Gerald von Stoddard.
Yeah.
What is it?
Stoddard?
Von Stoddard.
Yep.
Von Stoddard.
It's not that hard. I'm just stupid. All right.
No, that's a weird name, yeah.
People can't say my last name, so. Mo Quinn. Somehow they can't say that.
No, it's Dylan's last name. I will never try until I hear it. I was looking at it going, Miss. Nope, not happening. Miss Swilich? I can't.
It's Polish, if that helps.
Miss Liwich? No, I'm not doing it.
It's relatively close to the Polish pronunciation. So in English, it's Myslowik.
Myslowik.
Yeah, basically the way I try to get people to remember it is like a candle wick, and it's burning slowly, like my slow wick, but it's my Slowik, right? Just an easy way to remember it. But in Polish, it'd be Myslewik.
Myslewik.
Yeah, Myslewik or Myśliwiec.
Well, I can see that. Well, it's funny because I live in Italy mostly. And so whenever I see people's names, I forgot how to look at names like an American. So I'd be like, McQueen, Greg McQueen.
People would say that. Even my high school, like I was called out of the principal's office like one time, and they added a letter to my last name. I'm like, I've been here how long, and you don't know how to say my last name? But then like there's another family that has the same last name, and they said it perfectly. Same last name, just different family. How do you do that?
He had something against you, I think.
Yeah,
he did something.
It's like Greg Molquin, and I'm like, there's no hell in that.
It's that Greg character. Troublemaker.
That's right. I get people that spell my first name wrong, and it's like, I don't get it. Like, I get the DY. If they do that, I'm like, oh, you just didn't know. But like those, I'll send somebody an email where my name is in there, and they'll spell Dillion, like DLLION.
And is that even a name?
First off, it's not. Somebody tried to tell me it was. I'm calling them a liar. But apparently there's like one person on earth with that name, but it's not me. It's a fake name. That person's a fake name. Anyways, the thing that I thought that was funny was for years, it used to bother me. There's a book, what's it called? How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Yeah.
And in there, there's the idea that a person's name to them is the sweetest sound in any language. And the whole idea is that people value their own name more than most other things. And so if you mess up their name, it's actually really bad. So if you ever want to make a bad impression, you're trying to reach out to someone, mess up their name. And so I'd get people that would reach out to me sometimes. And if they spelled my name wrong, I ignore them entirely. Like there's no reason. If they're reaching out to me, but if it's someone I've already reached out to and they mess up my name, sometimes they're like, wait, like they spelled my name correct. And after years of dealing with that, I got a computer with a smaller keyboard, and I accidentally spelt my own name like that once. And I go, oh my God.
There you go.
It's where the letters are. They're accidentally hitting the I. I didn't realize that for years. And because I've always had like a bigger, like mechanical keyboard. And then I got a laptop after not having one for years. And I started typing one day and I did it. And I was like, oh, now I get it. Like I've been a jerk.
And you wrote everybody and said, I'm so sorry.
Now, it's so funny though, because like I would still tend to agree though, if you're going to reach out to someone, double check that you spelled their name right. But for anybody else who's emailed me after the fact, I normally reply to them anyways, but I was always like, by the way, that's how you spell it.
Well, I get a lot of Van.
Yeah.
But that's Dutch and it's capitalized. Von is German and it's not capitalized.
Yeah, that's messed up.
But whatever, I know. It's okay.
I'm trying to think about it. I have a client. Are they Von? Oh, they're Von too. Yeah.
Maybe.
I think he capitalizes it though. Man, that was messing with me. I got to think about that.
I mean, you can. It doesn't really matter, but it's typically lowercase. Yeah.
Note to self.
Yeah. So before we get into this, who are you? What do you do, Gerald?
Well, I make furniture for cats in space.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that, I'll be on you guys put me on mittens soon for my real life furniture. Well, I'm a comic artist, sometimes writer, mostly storyteller. I don't like to say writer anymore because I kind of stopped doing that. Um, but a comic creator, in one form or the other, primarily an artist. And I have some creator-owned stuff. I do covers for indie artists all over the world. Nowadays, I'm a dad to two awesome kids. One's not so awesome because he doesn't like comics. The little one loves comics, so he's my favorite. Um, and yeah, that's what I do.
Cool.
I meant to do that earlier. I keep forgetting to do that, like to do the spotlight view when people are talking.
Yeah. So you have Immortal Coil, and you got 1,000 Cuts, which was with you and Frank Martin that just funded on Kickstarter. So yeah, that's what else do you have in like the pipeline?
Oh man, so much. When you're your own person, it's hard to do as much as you want to do. So, and Immortal Coil was such an epic story that I was working. I mean, that really started 10 years ago, and then I put it on the shelf. And then when I came back into it, I didn't even draw that one issue. This is a long time ago. I was just writing, and I wanted to focus on writing and focus on this story. It was very epic. Sort of life and the comic scene will whittle you down if you're smart. Because you can think one thing and then kind of get hit by a reality stick real fast. And crowdfunding comics is different than say it's not that different because people who know that Previews magazine is 2 months ahead. So crowdfunding is very similar, but when you're a one-man operation, it's I had a creative team, but I was the writer, the artist, the marketing, the graphics, you name it. So for a long time, it was just that book, and we are already 2 issues in. Third issue is going into pre-launch in end of September, and we're going to wrap it up in 6 issues. And then 1,000 Cuts, number 1 just came out. When Frank and I were talking, we were in a Discord group together, and I invited some people to kind of brainstorm with me because Immortal Coil opened up a lot of doors as an artist that I wasn't expecting, and sort of made me busier than I had originally planned, which is a great problem to have. I'm not complaining. It's a great problem to be busy as an indie creator, who people don't relatively know. So I feel very blessed and honored to be surrounded by so many awesome, inspiring people and other people making great books, and started doing a lot of covers, and that just kind of sort of snowballed so much that Frank and I did a 4-page Swamp Thing story for like a bootleg, and I really loved the art, and I thought Frank did a great job with such a short amount of pages. It really was 4 pages, like an afterthought, and he was super easy to work with, and he got my madness, because when I'm beginning a story, I am insane, and no one wants to be around me because I'm like, it's like a beautiful mind where he's like just writing on like glass, and it's like, please, someone make sense of the threads of my insanity. And I had this idea for 1,000 Cuts that I was sitting on for a while, and I didn't want it to disappear. And I just kind of turned it over to Frank. I love what he did. And so that kind of began Third Contact, which is, so all of my books and projects, unless they get picked up, will be released under Third Contact. But those are all my creations. Frank does his own thing too, but Frank is, so Frank takes my stories, he makes sense of it, and then I draw it. And that's pretty much kind of like what we got going on. So with the success of 1,000 Cuts, we have a graphic novel we're working on. We have we have a book. I've been told I can't announce it. I don't know why, but we have a one shot.
Except on SeerNova Podcast, that's crazy.
I don't mind
saying.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna be doing it. Well, I don't. You know what? I don't care if I get in trouble. It's fine. We're doing a hospice one shot, which is originally created by Travis Gibb. So we're doing.
It's a whole like connected anthology thing that they do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a horror thing. So my horror is a little different than maybe some people's horror. I like more psychological horror. I love if it's mythology or more supernatural or slower burn. Really gets in your head. That's the kind of horror I really, really like.
The psychological thrillers, those are fun.
Yeah, like Jacob's Ladder or things that you just don't see coming and it's not just gory. That's like hopefully some depth and weight to it. I like the scary, vintagey, EC comic stuff too. I love it. But some of that was pretty it wasn't like all gore. I mean, it was just creepy. So we're working on that. Doing a short. I think Frank might be writing that too. We're doing another anthology with Orange Cone Productions and a book that I can't announce. That one for sure I can't because that one may get published.
Secret. I got a
secret. So it's a comic series. It's horror. It is a really messed up tale. Actually, Frank said, after I finish this script, I need therapy.
Yeah, I'm like slowly right. Well, I think I did finish it, but I have to go back and like edit it. But we do have a serial killer comic, like a one shot.
Oh, nice.
So I when I was working security, I watched a lot of true crime, like to the point of like I got paranoid and I stopped watching it.
It'll do that to you.
Yeah, because my coworker got me like hooked on like all that like serial killers and stuff, and I was like, yeah, I never really like watched that stuff. And then like I started watching it, and I just kept on watching it. And I'm like, Then I like went to my apartment, and then I just thought like everybody was like out to get me. I was like, I'm gonna just stop watching this for a while.
Maybe they are.
Yeah. And then
that's what those shows are about.
And then my serial killer, before even knowing anything about BTK, our serial killer character that's technically part of our like Seer Chronicles universe stuff that is now like shelved. That story is. He is still gonna have his story, but he's like the opposite of the BTK killer. So the BTK killer, he wrote what he did to them after he did the stuff, and my guy writes it as a story like in his journal, and then he does it, so he makes it like a story. So he's called the storyteller. So yeah. But it's really weird because like when we're at conventions and I'm like, so I got a cat in space, superheroes, and murder, and they're like, oh.
Which one do you want?
Yeah, and then there's
the woman with the decapitated head.
Yeah. So the two stories that I wrote in the second issue of Chronicles of Horror is there's one that was just made because it was a joke for me and our friend Hector, and his name is Robert Turtleton. It's Chucky inside of a turtle. So there's a guy that came up to our table at the Connecticut at the Creator Con, and he's like, anything that this turtle was on, I will buy it. I was like, oh,
so
okay.
Shirts, because I already designed the shirt too. It's like it was one of the panels just fit perfectly on a shirt, and I was like,
that's awesome.
So
my 7-year-old would actually probably read that.
Yeah, and so it's just a 3-page story of like him attacking his owner, but so there's just a blood trail and it leads from the living room on the TV is a scene from The Office, and it leads into the room, and then he's like standing on his 2 legs, and he's got like a little scalpel in his like paw, hand, whatever you call it.
Right.
He's talking to him. And in the 3rd issue of Chronicles of Horror, he's actually like pulling that guy's dead body like in a wagon. He's going to be just going down like road. So yeah, that just started because it was a joke because I have a messed up mind.
Some of those are the best ones.
Yeah. And then the other story is called The Painter, and Richard Jones III. He drew that, and it's more like Beetlejuicy, and
that's cool.
It's just because it's the art, because it's in an art gallery. So he definitely made some stuff that looks like it's from Beetlejuice. And it's just a painter that kills people at the gallery and then like uses their blood as paint. So
kind of like Muse.
Yeah, exactly. But without the whole vigilante aspect.
Right.
So yeah, villain, whatever. But yeah, that's exactly what it is. That Daredevil show's so good.
Very good.
We have an art print of the painter, and she's like holding the head. And every con we've been to, we just don't know where to put the print.
We actually have the Mittens plushie holding it now.
That would be amazing
for kids.
We were just joking around with Aaron Robolewski, who has that book, Enenra, the horror sort of virus apocalyptic horror book. And on his Kickstarter, he has a plushie. And it's like, I'm sorry, Aaron, if you do see this, it's horrifying. I love it because it's like, oh yeah, this horror book, people are dying, it's like a plague. Get our plushie. And it's a bat, but it doesn't even look like a bat. It's like, did you make it look disfigured on purpose? Because I would probably get that for my, first of all, my 7-year-old is a very interesting child. He's like, I call him Tim Burton Jr. He is something else. He is more into the We do. I've been teaching him how to do stop motion.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we have an app, and I use my iPad, and we set up in the summer on vacation. We make these movies.
I didn't know there was an app. Now I got to find that app.
Oh, there's lots of them, but we found a pretty good one, and you can add music and titles and everything. It's so cool.
Oh,
that's super cool.
That's cool.
And they're all horror. That's him, not me. I don't go, let's make a horror one. He's like, so we have to go out and buy slime and red paint, and he's like, oh, I had to melt Tony Stark Lego, so half his face was like dripping, and that's all him.
What's it? The chocolate syrup and red dye to get that like real like thick blood look.
Haven't done that.
That works really well. I put on a couple Halloween shows, like concerts. They were like rap concerts. And it was like was it a high tech horror? It was, and what's it called? We did like scare rooms where we got like actors that were like dressed up as different stuff, and one of them was like a Dexter room, we called it, wall to floor to ceiling, all white tarp, and then we threw blood all over the place, and then we had some lady on a what's it called, like a table, and then they had ground beef cooked, like sitting like underneath like a stomach, and then there's just somebody like ripping it out and eating and stuff. So it was like crazy. It's awesome.
Wow. That is crazy.
And then there was somebody tied to a chair watching it, freaking out because they couldn't get out.
You made that?
Oh yeah,
that's awesome. Wow.
It was the brainchild of one of the artists that we worked with, like under our record label, and we ended up having it was super cool. That was one room, and the other one was a what's it called, a burnout room, we called it, and it looked like an apartment that had burned down. So we had like blackened furniture and stuff, and we hung like black rope from the ceilings and stuff, and then we had some cannibal in there hiding, and the second you'd walk in, they'd kick over a table and they'd like run towards you, and then there's somebody on the ground, they would just start mauling and stuff. It's like, yeah,
I don't know what's more disturbing, that you did that, or I'm listening to you going, God, that's so cool.
It was so cool. That was probably one of the coolest events I was ever involved in, like producing, and it was like, it was awesome. And it was fun too, because like
the hamburger meat, that I never heard that. That's cool.
It was super cool. That was totally our artist idea. Yeah, if anybody wants to look him up, it's Blow, Bleaux. And we put on a show for like 3 years in a row, and that was I think the second show. And he's like an industrial rap artist, so he's got some like interesting sounds. But the shows were cool. We bought like that 13-foot tall skeleton from Home Depot. That we had one of those there. And then we had these scare rooms. We had people walking around like zombies, freaking people out. And then I think there's something else we did too.
You had me with the hamburger meat. Someone eating it.
Yeah.
Wow. That would. I've never seen anything like that. I wouldn't mind. Like in person.
After we did it, we wanted to do like even crazier the next year, but it was like hard to pull something like that off. But we did make like we built like an entire outdoor maze. So we did it all in like a warehouse, and then the outdoor maze was just like PVC pipe and there's either garbage bags or black tarp. I don't remember what we used, but we covered it all up. And then we had some guy chasing you in there, and like it was pretty fun. And then
I don't like being chased.
Yeah,
I love like Halloween like stuff, and it's the creepier. I love it, but I do not like being chased. I'm ready to fight.
Just turn around.
I'm like, wait a second, because I think in Greg's talking about true crime. I'm like, wait a second, what would be the perfect cover for a goddamn killer? A Halloween scare house.
There's literally a movie.
No one would go, oh my God. They'd be like, oh, wow, that looks so real. And meanwhile, it is.
Yeah, there's a movie. I think it's called Hellfest or something like that.
Hell House.
Hell House?
Oh, I haven't seen
Hell House.
Is it? Okay. But it's like some
Hell House LLC. And
but it's still
this is a different one. I'm thinking of. They didn't have an LLC. I think it's.
But you're talking about a movie. I mean, like, I don't want to be chased because this is real life. This is my life. This is not a movie. I can't turn it off. There's some guy chasing me with a chainsaw. I'm like, is he paid? Is he going to really chop me?
The only ones because I'm similar in that sense. The only ones that I don't mind that in because it's a little more obvious and safer is when they do it in like the haunted hay rides where like you're in a cart. So
you feel safer.
Well, because you're taller than them. You know what I mean? So it's like they're
yes, because that stopped every killer in American history, in world history. Oh, the cart was too high. Couldn't make that extra 2 feet. You're safe.
No, but you're also surrounded by meat shields, so it's like.
Oh, okay. You're like, yeah, you're just throwing children over.
If you're in a maze, it could just be you and you.
Yeah.
But if you're
sorry, Billy, slow the homicidal chainsaw guy down.
Like,
no, Daddy.
Yeah, you gotta clog the chainsaw. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to clean it. Then I have time to run.
Oh yeah. And everybody knows that slashers can't run. They're all very slow walkers. So as long as you got some good legs on you, you're out of there.
Well, I think that's why, like, what was it? 30 Days Later did so well because that was like the first film where zombies were just as fast as anybody. Like, what a simple concept, but how terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're so used to seeing like, but it was like, no, these guys are like amped up. They're probably faster than your fat ass.
Yeah, what if they had a 5'4" 40? You're like, oh shit.
Yeah. So I mean, I remember watching them and going, damn, these guys are dead.
Yeah.
There's a new one coming out.
What?
There's a new one coming out.
I know. I'm pretty excited about it. I hope not to be let down, but I'm pretty easygoing when it comes to movies. It takes a lot for me to get let down.
Was that like the 28 months later or something? Wasn't that the one where it was like 28 days, 28 weeks, 28 months, something like that? Am I going crazy?
Yeah. Well, is it 28 months or years?
I think
it might be years.
Years.
Oh, interesting. I forgot the concept of it. That's the reason why I was like, I can't remember.
I know. I want to go back and see the first one again because I saw that one that was like 28 weeks later. I wasn't impressed. It was okay. 28 days later, phenomenal. The music, Cillian Murphy was amazing. It was like, wasn't like Hollywood like overblown. It felt like it had a realism to it, even though it's.
I was just about to say that's something I don't remember. I was watching some like YouTube channel talking about this. How like the better the graphics got, the worse the stories got because they could lean on the quality of the graphics. Like it's almost universally true. Like think about it. Why are there fans of the old Godzilla movies? Like if you watch them right now, you're like, holy crap, like that's bad. Like, you know what I mean? It's not even like okay. Like it looks like somebody's toy.
But when it was first came out, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
You would be like, whoa.
But typically it's because the stories soak you into the, you're like, now you're in
yeah,
the
sure.
and then you see Godzilla and you're like, it must be real. But like if you took the storytelling they did for what was it, Godzilla, not 2000, what was the one that came out in 2000? I think. The leaning forward Godzilla that was terrible.
Right. I know what you're talking about.
Like, that Godzilla, like if you took that storytelling and used it in those old, like no one would have ever liked that. Like it was very clear that they leaned on the fact they had, new animations, new CGI, all this stuff.
Well, you're 100% right. I mean, whenever I've ever been in this conversation, I think of the second and third Matrix films.
Yes.
Like the first one I saw in the theater, I was living in Los Angeles at the time. I saw in the theater 9 times. Every weekend I went to see it. Like every Friday after work, I went to a different theater to watch it because I hadn't seen anything like it. And they did most of those stunts. There was computer animation, but it wasn't on the people.
Yeah, did you
like
bullet time they made the thing where he like fell back?
Right.
It was a string of like 300 cameras surrounding him that like fired off in synchronization.
And it looked great, and the story was great. And the story didn't reinvent the wheel, but it was like, this is a great story, great pacing. Keanu's acting fit that movie. And then the second and third movies come out, and it was like, well, look what we can do now. And it was like, you just killed the story. You're overblowing it, CGI, and I don't feel invested. So I still watched them. The second one isn't terrible. I think there's cool parts of the story, but they get overlooked by how much they tried to cram in technology-wise.
Yeah, and it's funny too because they had interesting concepts. I think it was the second one. Is that when they added the ghosts and the werewolves and all that stuff? Like or the vampire. Remember they had like old what are they called? Like lore creatures. Do you remember the one I'm talking about? They had the 2 twin brothers that were ghosts.
Oh yeah, that was
the second or the third one. The second, right?
The second one.
They had a cool concept, but then they definitely overdid it in the sense that, they played a lot into the fact that they're like, oh, they're ghosts. Like, let's show that a bunch of times. And it's like, all right, like.
I mean, it can happen in comics too, and I've had this conversation tons of time, and that's why I think it's like creators who are just trying to do it on their own probably have a great story, a great idea, but then if you don't have people, a team or editor or people to bounce it around, I think that story becomes, you only have a certain amount of pages, first of all. It's very much harder than a movie. And the story can take second place too, because I think writers do it, artists do it. Artists want to make that cool panel. Writers want to try to cram it all as much as they can get into 20 pages or so. And I feel really, and we're talking about my partnership with Frank Martin is like the biggest sort of blessing I've had as a comic creator is having someone say, we're missing the story. We're missing the story just to try to make a cool looking comic. If it doesn't have a story, it has no legs.
The interesting thing too was that made me think of it. I was trying to remember the title. That might be the one. I remember finding out that there was a couple. There's 2. There it is. Yeah, there's 2 comic books that the artwork was like okay, like it wasn't that good, but the stories were so good that Netflix picked them up into the TV series.
Which ones are those?
So Polar by Victor Santos.
Oh my God, that movie is awesome. I haven't read the comic. The movie's great.
That was a web comic.
No,
really? The other one is Sweet Tooth by Jeff Lemire.
Sweet Tooth. Yeah.
But like the idea was that the comic art wasn't like incredible. But
don't knock Jeff Lemire with Neon. You wait till I'm off. You can't knock Jeff Lemire with me. Jeff Lemire is like, I love his artwork because it's not. You can say, hey, this isn't the best comic art I've ever seen, but it's so Jeff Lemire.
But that's the point, though, is that the art doesn't need to be phenomenal for the story to be good. And if the story is good, the art can be carried by the story. Okay. But the other way around doesn't really work, especially if you're trying to do comics. Like with film, you can Michael Bay it, and it's like, wow, that was crazy. But like the thing is and the reason why that's proof or self-evident is think about the Fast and the Furious. You know what I mean? Like
I'm proud to say I've never watched one.
But think about this. How do they keep making money? People keep going to watch them for a reason.
Because the world is so fucked up. They go to a movie to be like, they don't want to think.
Yeah, and
they don't want to think.
It's so funny if you really think about it. Though, when you buy a product, the product solves your problem. It's a solution to your problem. Do you know what all forms of entertainment are? Escapism from your problems. That is literally what entertainment is. And so they do that to the perfect degree of making you escape and not have to think about your problems. You just get to see action and explosion.
What if your problems are family and you keep saying family?
So that's the thing though, is like by making that by in film adaptation you can do that. You can't do that in comics. It is near impossible to make artwork that is so good that it will carry the story. I think that it is much easier in film because you can get so much more realistic. Where comics, it's still, there's no action, there's no sound. But like, and that's another thing. Even Greg and I, we've talked about this years ago, and then we met someone at the Indie Comic Creator Con that basically did what we were talking about, which is take QR codes and sprinkle them throughout a comic, so you can actually hear sounds and music and all that stuff while doing the comic. And it's a great idea, but that's the thing, is that it had to add that to get to the next level of your engagement with it. But with just art on a page, I would say that maybe the first issue you can pull it off, but you're not going to get people buying series after series of a comic that is great art.
I mean, they've been before QR codes. I can remember growing up, and there were. Is that the first time? 3D glasses, comics. There was, and I can't remember. It was It was an indie publishing company. My buddy Daniel Torres is a comic creator. He would know exactly what it is.
Describe it.
It was comics they were putting out that I don't know if you bought a record with it, or there was like music and soundtracks and narration and stuff involved as an accompaniment. Like maybe it came in the back. Gimmicky. It did not take off because comics remain the medium they are, because they mix.
Is it called Power Records, a division of Peter Pan Records?
No, that's something different. I know exactly what you're talking about. I think I had one of those. I'd have to ask Daniel again.
Dollar Man.
Yes, that one too. But I feel like comics are still a medium where, obviously there's art done for you, so you don't have to imagine like when you're reading a novel, but you get to still read it as yourself, like interpret it as you would a novel, but you're led through the story by the art, by the movement, by the sequentials, which definitely is a team effort. So I think it kind of marries all the things I love. I love books. I love artwork. I love movies, and it can kind of combine all that stuff.
There was an artist, Chris Saloff. Did I say his last name again? Greg.
Yeah.
Craig.
I know. Yeah.
So he had a comic book where they wanted to put a song in there, like a theme song, and then they realized that the number of words they would have used would have been copyrightable, and any less than that wouldn't be recognizable. So instead, they literally filled it in with something like "insert your favorite song here."
Yeah.
So anybody reading it would get to that part, and in their head, they could be thinking of, I don't know, Thunderstruck, AC/DC, whatever would come to your mind for this scene, and then you get to think about that. So I do like that.
That's good. That's cool. That's funny. That's clever.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is it's like a small fourth wall break without the characters doing it. So it's like this enjoyment, whatever the pump up music would be that they're going in for that final battle. Like what would you listen to? Like so.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Oh man, I never mentioned this to him, Greg, but I would do this if I was him. I would come up with a playlist of like the best songs to use and put it on Spotify and be like the crit play like theme song playlist.
That's funny you said that. I actually have had that idea because I make playlists for a comic that I'm drawing.
Yeah,
and they're all different.
That's super funny. Greg and I actually have this on our Notion, Greg, because we chatted about this forever ago. I wanted to make a collection of playlists based on specific genres, like subgenres of comics that people want to write. So like if, again, psychological thriller, like very specific. and then make playlists on Spotify. So when you go to write, you actually can listen to music that'll put you in the mood. So I wanted to do that and put that on our website, like all the different types. So if you've got one for yours, I wouldn't mind sharing it on there and being like, brought to you by Third Contact.
Yeah, there was I think it was a stretch goal or something for ink, or maybe it was an idea and I didn't put it down, but it was an idea that I had, and it was like a music like MP3 like playlist, either like on a USB drive or like just a Spotify playlist. And it was
I think it's cool. If someone did that, I mean, I would be into it. I would listen to it.
Yeah, it's like the music that's in like on a CD in his car that he's listening to until he crashes.
See, I think that's kind of cool. I mean, it's like 4D movies. It puts you sort of in that mood because that's the vibe.
I have some bands that I can actually use because I've asked them years ago, like, because we were going to make a video game and it's way in the back burner. But there is a band that I listen to that's like semi-pro-ish. That he probably would hate me if I said semi-pro. But but the band shirt is in our newest series, Night Watch, and that's actually a band shirt you could buy. And they're called Bunny and the Bear, and I could actually use one whole album that they made.
Oh wow!
Because like he did it, like Victory Records or somebody else didn't actually do it, so I can actually use that album. He's like, yeah, cool. You can like put it in a video game or whatever you want to do. It's like, okay, so I'll do that.
Well, I was talking about Daniel. Daniel did that for Tales from Toxic Pond. He had a song because the story is about two sort of country singers, a man and a woman, and it's kind of a horror story. So he had a song made for as a stretch goal.
The way that was funny. You're like, it's this country thing about a man and a woman, just a horror story. Like that was
for the third issue of our anthology. It takes place in a sitcom, like within the universe of where the horror story is taking place. And there's a theme song for the sitcom, and I'm trying to get Timothy Fling, even though he's been like MIA lately. Yeah. He makes music, and I was gonna have him do the theme song for that, but I have to either write the song or like somebody has to write it. But it's gotta be like a sitcom, like Family Matters or something. But it's gonna be like that, but it's horror, so it's gonna be like the killer is like stabbing someone, and then it's like.
Well, the cool thing too is for those of us who do comics on Kickstarter, I mean, there are videos, there are reels, to introduce that vibe, and then be like, people might, then it becomes, whether you know it or not, associated with how, in a way, being kind of like not manipulated, but led to how you're supposed to really get in the mood of this story.
This is something. So I do like consultations for like performing artists, like musicians, like hip hop artists, R&B, stuff like that. One of the things I tell them when they're doing like marketing is, if you can get your music associated with a physical action. So like, let's say you want your music related to BMX biking, UFC fighting, something like that, where it's like you can put them side by side, so eventually they see that, they think your music. It works the same way with comics. If you get your visual thing associated with the music, it can very much help where like they could hear a song that kind of sounds like the song that you played during your comic, and it might trigger the memory of your comic, and it makes your world a little stickier in people's minds, so that they can actually think about you more often. Because like that's a big deal in any space where you sell or market anything, is that very often, if you're not top of mind, you just won't get purchased ever. It's like there's an idea where when you go to make a sale, like let's say you're a salesperson and you're selling, it doesn't matter, books, like encyclopedias back in the day, right? The big thing that would happen is the first time you'd ask, you have a certain percentage of closing, and every other time you ask, you get a greater percentage of closing. And it turns out 60% of all sales happen after the 6th request. So you're not on the top of somebody's mind and you just go to like a convention every now and again, or you do one Kickstarter campaign and you're wondering why people don't buy your comics on a regular basis. Like, it's a really big deal to make sure you're constantly reminding them, hey, I exist. I know there's 8 billion distractions in the world right now, but I'm over here. And you don't forget you like me because of this. That's the reason why, like, people, even super large corporations, just run ads all the time, even ones that don't work, because they're just trying to get you to remember their name. That's it. Like, just so that you're walking down the street and like their name pops in your head for no reason. Well, at least you think it's no reason, but something in your environment was triggering that thought.
Well, I'll tell you a funny thing. I've never even said this on a podcast. I've never had this conversation really on a podcast. My previous career, I made the background music for VH1 and MTV. And so my job was to do exactly what you're saying, was to make music you didn't know you were listening to put you in the vibe.
Nice.
You would never know where you heard it. But that was what I did. I made music for that, and that's how I made a living.
That's awesome. But like,
I did graphic design too, but that was but I made more money selling music to MTV.
Oh yeah, sync. What's it called? In the music industry, sync, touring, and merchandise are the top 3 ways to make money. And so you do VHS and MTV. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, America's Next Top Model. That was my #1 show.
Nice.
Can you believe it?
It's so.
And you should hear the music I made. I was like, they used my music for the times when it was like, what's gonna happen? Commercial break. Like.
That's awesome.
And making the band, I did a whole season of the.
That reminds me of Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Like, he just does like the background music for like that one show. He's like, he does like Seinfeld because he's just like, he broke up with Sarah Marshall.
That guy wrote the bass line, the opening of Seinfeld. That guy probably made millions from an accident.
Yeah,
he was like tuning his bass. No, keep it.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
So yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, that the whole thing too is just world building in general is very powerful, and the more sensations, memories, triggers that you can create in someone's mind, like it's super powerful.
Well, because I do, as a lot of us do, social media, more on Instagram. So Instagram, I won't post a piece of art that I've done without a song. I don't see any reason. Why would you not? It offers you. Either your sound is on or you turn it off. Doesn't matter. You're still going to see the art. But I am very intentional about the song.
Oh, that's
like
weird.
Not just music I like. It was like something that I was either listening to, or I'll go through 50 songs sometimes to find the one that I want you to be hearing while you're looking at this.
Oh, I thought I was the only one that does that.
You did that?
Yeah. So I gotta think of what. Oh, so there's I think there was a page that I did. I'm about to get depressing. So there was a page that is in the back of Mittens 2. Yeah, because 3's not out yet. The back of Mittens 2. And I think it was like the dedication page. I think it was a post, but there was something with Mittens involved, and my uncle that passed away almost 2 years ago. And I put the Beatles song. Shit, what the fuck is this song? Can't think of the song. It's a Beatles song. I really like the Beatles. And I put it like on that post, and it's just because like I was thinking of like he just passed then, and it was a dedication for him. So I did that, but there's like usually it's a song I'm listening to, but it's actually because I was listening to that song when I was writing that scene or whatever. So, but it does connect. Like sometimes there's actually meanings. Like the reason I came up with the serial killer name, the Storyteller, is because of a song by a band called Broadside called Storyteller. That's the only reason why it's called that. And I was like, oh, now I gotta just build it around that. But I just did that. Or there's songs that I put on posts that actually tease future issues of our comics, and people don't know that yet.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That's cool.
We do way too much world building.
Yeah, and it's just like it's in my head, and Dylan doesn't even know that anyway. Like, there's a band called Dayseeker, and they have a song called Midnight Eternal. That's gonna be a thing in the future. So yeah, the people
You hear that, Dylan? You got it?
Oh, he does that to me all the time too. Where like he won't tell me something, then he'll tell me that. I'm like, oh man, this is how we could tie it in. And he's like, oh yeah, and it does tie in. Like we do that all the time. Like some of the like weird stuff that we've done in world building is as simple as like an Easter egg in the background where it's like an image of a company logo like hidden on something, and it's repeated in a couple comics.
Sure.
Mention it. So like that's like a small way we do it. And then other stuff that we do for like world building. This was super recently, and I go off on tangents like this. I had the latest comic that we did involves an MMA fighter, and then I'm like, oh, but like our Earth, we have a different name. It's called Venetia. We don't have the same continents. We have different continents and names of cities, all this stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah. If we do that, we can't just call the martial arts what they're called, because some of them like we know the origin of. So we can't make up the name again. So what I did was I went through and I learned how they were named, and then I basically reverse engineered and named it something similar, but changing the tonality. So like what's it called? Jeet Kune Do, which is the martial arts Bruce Lee and Dan Inosanto created, means intercepting fist, right? But one of his philosophies was to be like water, so shapeless, formless. So I came up with another name. It's like totally saying this wrong. It's like Washing Do or something like that, and it means like formless way, and that's our Jeet Kune Do. So like
that's cool.
A different name, and then the other one was Sistema, which is the Russian fighting style, which literally means the system. So I'm like, okay, so they're very blunt with their names. So I found another one, Bojovka, which means combat, like in Russian. So like that's now our Russian Sistema. So like if we wanted to show our artists what the fighting looks like, we'll show them Sistema. But if we reference it in the story, we have a name for it and everything. So like, yeah, we go like super in depth with like how we build our worlds. We have histories for like the continent that is our like US. And that's actually how we named it. We came up with like our entire back history, and then we're like, this will be the guy's name. So America is technically the name of an explorer. That's why it's the Americas.
Right.
There's another guy who was, I think, like the mayor or the first congressperson for Schenectady. Yeah. And basically we named it after him because that's where our main city is based off of. So it's called.
And we looked up if he was ever canceled.
Yeah, to make sure he wasn't like, something bad.
Oh, right. I see what you mean.
We looked up if he was canceled, and then I looked up if there was anything worth canceling him over, just in case.
Right.
After I looked it up,
good call.
He was just a normal dude, and so I was like, all right, cool. So it's the Commonwealth of Whitmire. So I was like, that's how we came up.
And it works, and that's the great thing about when you are world building. You could say anything. Yeah. What was that? Someone can't say, wait a second, that doesn't sound believable. Like you just said Whitemire, yeah. There's a town not far from my mom called Climax. Why not?
Yep. Yeah. Climax, New York.
You know it?
I know of it.
Right next to Coxsackie.
I never, Climax.
I mean, there's another town near here where they had a cement plant, so it's called Cementon.
Oh my God, dude! It's funny. I had to do.
Why not?
I was doing marketing for a roofing company, and so I finally had to look up all the what's it called, the counties in upstate New York. I've never had to look them up before, and I'm like, what the hell are these names? Like Shungai, like a bunch of like. I thought Schenectady and like Shenendahoa were weird, and then like all these.
Well, they might be American Indian. I think this was their. Okay, listen, we're sorry that we killed all those people. Let's just name all of New York after Indians.
They're
sorry we killed your whole
bloodline. Means place beyond the pines. So
look
at this. See.
But it was very interesting seeing all those names. It was super strange. So like when we named our stuff, we still wanted it. Because the other thing we think about when we do world building is we don't want to create a scenario where we have to explain something later and we don't have a reason for it. So as long as we have a rough idea of where it came from, then that rough idea we can build upon later. So like we have
right.
Yeah, like there's an energy in one of our worlds that we actually know the history from the start of our universe, and we can play on how it got to this point, but we know its origin, so everything from that can play off of that.
Well, I think that is really key. Like the comic that I'm trying to wrap up right now, 1,000 Cuts. We have a backstory that goes back thousands of years. Are we ever going to use it? I don't know. I had a couple other writers come in, but we're just kind of decided we're just going to make this a modern story.
Yeah.
But we know that nothing is by accident. Will we ever spell it out? I don't think it's always good to kind of give away the farm, to just say, okay, now we're going to stop for exposition so you can know this and know this and know this.
I was going to say, the Joker's the perfect example of that. One of the most favorited villains has no real origin story, and every time they do a new one, everyone's like, that's the real one. It's like, it's such a, like, but then there's also ones where they have solid origin stories and they're cool, so there's not really a hard, fast rule on it. I just think, like you said, like knowing the history helps when you're writing the story for consistency, and that's like one of our biggest things is like keeping consistent.
And that is a world. I think that's accidental with Joker. Christopher Nolan capitalized on it. Christopher Nolan gave the Joker the backstory he's never had, and that is he is constantly fucking with you.
Yeah.
In the comics, they just changed their mind. They either didn't like, I didn't like what he did, so we're going to try this. I don't think that was on purpose.
Yeah.
I think Christopher Nolan, and this is just my opinion, someone could tell me, well, no, by my calculations, in Detective Comics number 46, that is incorrect. That's fine. Out-nerd me anytime. I don't mind. But from what I know, being a comics fan all these decades, is that what I loved in the Christopher Nolan film with Heath Ledger is that he tells his origin story 3 times and they're all different.
Yeah.
I love that too. That was definitely, I agree. That's probably the best way to take advantage of the fact that we knew it was almost like a fourth wall break almost in that idea where we all know that there's not a set origin story. And so he played on that knowledge.
100%. Like just constantly messing with you. And I love that. And I think Christopher Nolan and Heath Ledger in that movie, I'm not saying there aren't comics where I really love the Joker. Scott Snyder has done some amazing things with the Joker. Sean Murphy has done amazing things with the Joker character in like sort of like these alternate universes. But I just like that movie. It's like, why did no one think of that? Like, why did no one ever do that? Like in one comic, tell your origin 3 different ways. That is the origin. You're batshit crazy, or you're super smart, and you just constantly want to mess with people, make them feel vulnerable because they don't know you. Yeah. It makes you more unpredictable.
I think that is the cool thing is that it plays into 2 directions where he clearly is smart. So he's very smart, but he's either a genius or he's really smart, just straight psychopath and like out of his mind. Yeah. And it's like, and that's why it's such a cool idea is like this complete wild card, a Joker card of a character where you're just like, you have no idea what he's going to do. And every second he's always twisting and turning. And Batman, who's supposed to have contingencies for everything, even he messes up sometimes against this one like foe who is like, that's why it's such a, like, even the line where it's like, what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? It's like, it's that even that plays on that same idea where it's like, this guy's the wild card and somehow this thing has to stop it. And it's like, it's so cool.
Well, that's also like I was talking about with 1,000 Cuts. We have this sword, and it's an entity of its own, and we never in the first issue, and it's only a 4-issue series. We're never going to tell its origin story, and that was a conscious decision because people, we don't. Well, we had one version, so we kind of know, but then there was talk, probably mostly by me, or I haven't even told Frank yet. Was we should make like a dozen origin stories, and any of them are plausible. And if the comic did well and people wanted more of that story, we'd do like an anthology. But the anthology would be
A bunch of origin stories.
All origin stories.
And I was just thinking, I'm like, man, that would actually be such a cool idea as an anthology of a collection of possible origin stories where, like, even if you guys know the real origin story and, like, one piece of it is the same throughout all of them, that would be such a cool idea.
Well, the only idea I had was, you would think, oh, it's a katana. We're thinking ancient feudal Japan. Obviously, that's one option. But then I had this idea would be that every story takes place in a different era of history. So it could have been made by the Soviets. It could have been, World War II. Just kind of the American Revolution. Whatever. It was just because I was like, that'd be way more interesting. Kind of like we're talking about the Joker. Like, never answer it. So then, because comics, just because you're leading into the story through the art and the sequentials, what books can do sometimes more powerfully is like, not take away your imagination. Like, because when you use your imagination, you feel like you're invested in it.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the things that sometimes there's movies that they make you feel stupid because they spell out the obvious answer. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, I get it. He's your dad. You didn't need to say that. Everything around this just implied.
I just spoke to my own laugh.
But like, for real, I hate when
dad.
you do that in a movie where it's like, yeah, I can get it. Like, you didn't, like, it's like, oh, it was him all along. Duh. Like, holy shit. Like,
well, unfortunately, a lot of horror movies do that. I think horror movies are the most guilty of it.
Yep. And that's
way too guilty.
I hate that. Like,
and Scooby-Doo the hell out of it.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say it's a Scooby-Doo thing. Like, they do this. Like, I've seen
Mr. Jenkins.
I've seen like a bunch of these movies where they're actually pretty decent, and then it feels like it breaks you out of the world when it spells it out like that. You're like, yeah, okay, like, I guess.
Well, the first time you watched like Friday the 13th, like, ever, did you actually think it was the mom?
I did not.
Exactly. So that's pretty cool. Like, you don't know, and then you watch it, and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then it's Jason for the rest of the time. So that's cool. But yeah.
Well, that's. I mean, I feel like, I always think about Jacob's Ladder because that movie had a profound effect on me, and I think that they went a little too far in answering some things. And they could have ended the movie like way shorter and left people going, huh? But people, when they're trying to make their money back, are also trying to appeal to those who don't want to really think too deep about what they just watched. They want to create that. Oh, okay, yes, I thought it was the dad. But then my girlfriend was like, no, it's the cousin. And then my brother was like, no, it's the uncle. And who's right?
I was going to say, it's been a while since I've seen any of his films, but I feel like this is reminding me of like M. Night Shyamalan, where it's like he has really good twists, but then he also very much spells out like that was the twist.
Don't even talk to me about this guy. I want to really like him because Sixth Sense, maybe this is my opinion, I think is one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah.
Especially in that genre, because it was like, again, not rewriting or reinventing the wheel, but he told it in a way. Also, great actors. I mean, the acting was phenomenal, and the editing and the pace was spot on. Because when you go back, you have to watch the movie again. That's what he might have spelled.
Years too. I definitely do have to watch.
Well, he might have spelled it out at the end, but you have to go back and watch it and be like, "How did I not see it?" And that's cool. You can spell it out, but then make people feel like, "How did I miss that?" And then you see that it's so obvious.
Yeah, funny. I think that also makes movies. I think sometimes when a movie is like that, where you can never watch it the same again, it can make it a good movie even if you don't watch it again. The movie I always reference, The Book of Eli, like that movie is such an awesome movie.
Oh yeah,
you can never watch it a second time the same way, so it's not as cool the second time. Because now you're just looking the whole time. You're just looking for that. So I don't even like to spoil what it is in case someone hasn't seen it, because it really do love that movie.
It's a great movie.
It's the same thing as like The Sixth Sense, where you're like, like you're like your brain starts like recalibrating all the stuff you just watched, so you get like this flashback of what just happened. And the cool thing is, like, I'm not somebody like I typically watch a movie once and I don't really remember the whole movie. But the movies that are like that, it's so hard to forget because right after you finish digesting it, you immediately have a huge flashback of the whole movie trying to figure out where you could have noticed that, like that twist.
Well, this is interesting too, and I wasn't going to talk about it, but Frank and I do have a book that we're working on. I've only done some of the art, not much. It was a story I was at WickedCon, and I don't know, I was just on a long drive to Boston and just was listening to true crime podcasts, and I had this. At first, it was supposed to be funny. I was like, what? It'd be really funny, like a serial killer with short-term memory loss, like.
Oh my God.
So I just started going on and on like funny scenarios, and then Frank and I were at WickedCon, and I said, okay, listen, I had 3 hours. Here's my story. I don't want to lose it, and I just blurted it all out, and it's now become a full-fledged thing that we are working on, and there is interest in it. So it's a serial killer with short-term memory loss. It is not a comedy, but we are playing upon some tropes. Who done it? You think you know, but you don't know. You're going to have to read all 5 issues for it to wrap up, because he has an accident, where his wife dies, and he lives, but he had brain damage, so he can't remember. Once it's morning, it's like he can only remember the things before the accident.
So like
So he keeps waking up holding like a severed arm, or he's covered in blood, and he forgets to write notes for himself.
It's like Memento, but like
it's like Memento meets American Psycho,
meets
Groundhog Day, and then there's other characters come into play who kind of take advantage of that, and it gets more and more monstrous and supernatural than that.
That made me think of. I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, because I think I even just saw it again last night, that Ghostbusters is qualified as a horror film. Like that's like the category. But the thing is, it's a horror drama comedy action movie. Like they don't make movies like that anymore.
They
like
don't.
Where the goal, like I thought about even like the Uncle Buck era, like how they're coming of age film. There's a set. It's not a set theme. It's a drama, I guess, but it's like.
It's funny.
It's just a story, and it just happens to have real life. Like it could be funny, it could be scary, it could be sad, it could be happy. Like, there's no set emotion. It's just real life captured in these moments of greatness, whatever it might be. So that's why I like stuff like those films. It's not that, and again, like they didn't have amazing graphics or any of that stuff for Ghostbusters, and it's still a great film.
It's one of the best.
Yeah,
one of the best.
I think it's like one of those ideas where if you can capture any collection of genres into just a good story, like even Groundhog's Day, like that's a depressing film at some point. It's a funny film at other points, right?
Because it's Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Bill Murray, I'm sorry, if Bill Murray and Rick Moranis were not in Ghostbusters, we would not be talking about it to this day. Because you have these insanely twisted, fucked up situations that they are brilliant at making fun of, but in the way you would do, because it's so messed up. Yeah, he's not making fun of the situation. He's not making fun of the movie.
Yeah, like when he drives in front of the train and he's like, "Nah, don't worry, we'll be fine tomorrow." And the guy's freaking out. It is like again. I think it's just trying to capture as much of real life as possible. It's like what is it? Airplane, right?
Oh.
With Leslie Nielsen. Is that
Yes.
Yeah. And so the funny thing was like I didn't know this until like I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago, that he was actually a drama actor that was then casted to this role and told to read his lines as if it was a drama. And that's why it's
that's funny. That's hilarious.
So because he's reading it like it's real. It's like, Shirley, you can't be serious. I am serious. Don't call me Shirley. Like the whole point is like he's taking it seriously. Like he's like, when can we land the plane? I can't tell you. It's like, no, I'm a doctor. You can tell me. It's like, well, no, I'm not sure. It's like, well, can't you take a guess?
Well, he was a master at that dry sense of humor.
But that was the thing. But that's why is he wasn't doing dry comedy. He was reading it.
Right.
And that's so interesting because that's almost like taking something like the Ghostbusters and just stretching it to the extreme where the people are all doing their own movie on top of the same movie.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's the idea. And so I love that idea where like this is, the idea of the Groundhog's Day serial killer where like he has no idea what he did, but like that's such a
and it's a pretty serious situation, so it may end up being somewhat comedic without meaning to.
Yes, that's
because
what I mean.
It's so ridiculous.
Like just waking up with an arm and going, "That's weird." Like that is dark comedy. It's
I mean, it's very dark. It's hard. It's easier to do it in a movie because you can do real life situations. So because if you have short-term memory loss, he also is dealing with the trauma of those memories kind of floating all over. So Frank actually has come up with, I don't want to give it away because he's not here, but Frank actually has come up with a really brilliant way for me as an artist to draw time dissociation that I would not have thought of.
That's cool. I definitely maybe after we end the thing, if you're willing to, I'd love to hear it. The only reason why is like we even had one comic where it's actually the one of the comics we should be releasing next year was supposed to be this year, where one of the characters is hallucinating, and the way that it's drawn, like he's killing somebody, and then later you're like, wait, where's the guy he just killed? And it was all in his head, right? He's
the colorist.
The colorist is
so he's
confused.
like, oh, so wait, but he doesn't have the cop.
Yeah, where's the cop?
And I'm like, no. Oh, you're confused? That's good.
And it's just because this guy's losing his mind slowly. And so it's like, and that's kind of the whole idea. And so I do love the idea of being able to try to take still art and get you that. Yeah, because in a movie you could fade the video and you're like, oh, I see what's going on. He's losing his mind.
Yeah, and you can do camera movements, music. Yep. Everything is compiled to
even simple stuff. Although, oh damn, I just realized, I don't know if you thought of this, and now that I thought about it out loud, I'm just going to share it. One of the coolest ways to capture stuff like that would actually be what the Matrix did in the first one. When you are in the real world, all of the film footage has a blue tint to it, and when you are in the Matrix, all of the film footage has a green tint to it.
I'm colorblind, so I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I did not know.
That's super interesting. You're the second person in like 2 podcasts that is colorblind.
Are you serious?
That's crazy.
I'm severely colorblind.
Damn it. Who was it, Greg? We just had somebody like 2 episodes ago who's colorblind. He has his wife check the colors.
I don't colors. Yeah, I don't color stuff.
He
if
does.
I do it, it'll be like one color.
What he does that's actually super interesting.
It's probably good for you then.
But what he did, the other artist does is he actually he gets someone else to color it, but then he increases the contrast till he can see it. And I was like, man, that's brilliant. Because
I do some stuff like that too. I can see
Scott
shades.
King.
I know Scott. Yeah, Scott. So is Brian Wolf and a couple other Ben Bishop. My buddy Ben is colorblind.
But by the way, so like that in the Matrix, I get that's so funny. You didn't know that because if you love the movie, that was something I didn't notice until like the third time I watched it. And the third time I watched it, I noticed that.
Dylan, you're like blowing my mind over here.
So everything that is in the real world has a very obvious blue tint to it, and everything that is in the Matrix has a slight. It's clearly not blue, but has this slight green hue to it, like the green code that comes down on the screens when they're in the real world. So when they're in the real world and they see the screens and it's the green code coming down, when you're in the Matrix, all of the film has a green grade scale on top of it. And so that's super awesome. I'm glad I could share that because now like that's a way to make it so that the character has a it's a very obvious that this isn't real, but without it being.
I hear what you're saying about color because I worked with a couple colorists, so I didn't write it, but I get a lot of leeway as an artist. I'm wrapping up a supernatural Western horror comic, and that is something that we talked about with the colorist because I suggested it's all the real world, but you're coming from what you think is a straightforward Western story, and it goes off the rails. Like it's not going where anybody thinks it's going. It's not my comic to say where it's going, but I said so. Obviously, change the color, not drastically, but just enough that it feels you're in a different place.
That made me think of, so do you know eBay, like the website?
Yes, I know eBay.
Do you know?
I just landed on your planet. What is this eBay you speak of?
So there is something that is very cool because I'm into marketing. So like this is stuff that I've just studied history on some of these things. And one of the things was that eBay, when it first came out, had this crappy like piss yellow background on the back. It looked like paper that somebody pissed on. It was a yellow color and it was terrible. And they knew it was terrible. So one day they changed it to white. And everyone freaked out. And they're like, we hate this. Change it back. We don't like this. This is disgusting. And they're like, okay. And they put it back. And then every day for an entire year, they slightly increased the decimal number until it got to white and nobody noticed.
Funny.
But the cool thing, what you just mentioned, that made me think about it. If I was doing that same comic with the color, like slowly making everything red or slowly making everything a different color, what's it called? Hexadecimal numbers at a time as you progress through it. And it's like, so it's almost imperceivable. And the funny thing is, it's kind of like when you get that slow fade of light versus turning on a light switch and your eyes, dilate. It's this idea that your brain won't even perceive it. But if you flip back to the front page, you're like, whoa, wait, what? Like totally different look. And so that's the same with the Matrix. Like I said, it's so minor that unless you know it, you're not looking for it the first time, because the first time you're watching the story.
Right. Well, you should be, but your brain is always processing. So that's interesting, because you probably, I wouldn't, because I've watched something 100 times, never seen that, and I can't see it. So that would be. I wish not. But now I don't know. Now, Dylan, you kind of pissed me off. Because I feel like I've just missed something incredible, and I can't see it.
What are you? What colorblind are you? Because there's like 4 different types of colorblind.
All of them.
Oh, you're like straight grayscale. Like
there's a book that they wrote. No, that's called something else. So when you say colorblind, grayscale is that's like a brain thing.
Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 different types of color blindness. That's why.
So grayscale, because and Oliver Sacks writes a story about it. No, at night almost. So light affects also how I see color. So if I don't have enough light, I might as well be looking at black and white. I can't see it. So light affects how I see color. But I've never seen a rainbow. Once colors mix. Burgundy, purple, teal. I don't know what any of those are. Pink is almost near impossible for me to see. Green and yellow look the same. Red, brown, and green is the worst. So like growing up in the Hudson Valley in New York, I've never seen the leaves change. Sometimes the grass looks brown. Sky looks gray. So it's really, I get checked out now colorblindness isn't fixed. It's not like, you can't. They have glasses, but they're usually for if you're on a certain scale. So I am. Last time I was at the eye doctor, it was a new one, and they wanted to do a colorblind test. And the lady, not the eye doctor, was like, "I'll be right back," and she's gone for a bit. And then the doctor comes in and goes, "I'd like to see this," and so he gives me the same test. And so they have this book, and they're like, "You're like on the last page. The next book would be grayscale." Would be like you are absent of color. So I'm like in the book beforehand at the end.
That's awesome. That's cool though, like to know like that, because that's super interesting, because it makes me think about stuff that you could capture in stories working with the right team, because it's one of those things where as long as you know it exists now, like the Matrix thing, it's like that's something you can now use in storytelling. And it's like,
right. Well, being colorblind, it always now they call it color anomaly. They didn't call it blind anymore. I still see shades and lights and darks and things. So I think of color more like looking at something, how does something make me feel? And I don't think that's always done by the color you think it is. I think that is actually the difference between light and dark. Like, a dark yellow is going to feel very different than a very bright yellow. So just because I don't see the same yellow as you are, I am more focused on the feeling of that contrast of the shade. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I'm not gonna lie, like just because like I definitely like the dark humor route when you mentioned the what's it called, short-term memory killer. It would be kind of funny if you had a stretch goal of a coloring book. Like just
Well, here's something very funny though. That Kickstarter that just ended, there were 3 covers. Now I drew them all, but I only colored one. So thank God for digital and Pantone because they number everything.
Yeah.
And I learned that 20 years ago. So I knew, for whatever reason, I think I have sometimes seen the color gold. It's a very hard color for me to see. But left my own devices, I would get it wrong. I would probably make it green, and I don't mean to. And so I used the Pantone color, and I'm like, well, I wasn't going to use it for a cover. I was just like, I'm just going to make a print, and I'll use it for social media, and I'm just going to make it all gold, and I'll do some like shading, just kind of change some of the contrast. But it's only gold. And then I put it as a variant because Frank suggested it. I go, well, okay. If I sold like 5, because the other ones are professionally colored by colors, that's their job. And they did okay. My covers sold the best. Like I had to put it back on because I limited it to 50. I had to make it 100.
Holy crap.
And almost sold out of that second one. And I was like, Frank goes, you have no idea how funny that is to me. The colorblind guy's cover sold the best.
Do you know what's super interesting, by the way? And the reason why I like the colorblind thing, I think I mentioned it to Scott, was that I think it's something crazy like 1 in 12 men are colorblind of some type. That's why I was saying there's such a wide degree of the colorblindness, but like 1 in 12 have some form of colorblindness, which like it's funny because like I don't do art at all. Like I did our logo and stuff, but I'm not like an artist in the drawing sense. But I can see a huge array of colors. Like I can perceive colors that most people can't perceive or different.
All right, rub it in, dude.
No, but like, it made me think about the fact that like
you just started to make me feel bad. I can see colors that only scientists can see through the Hubble telescope. I'm so sorry.
Right? But the thing that made me think about is that means that if I was to create art, I might not create something that as many people could enjoy. Where it by being even just slightly colorblind, you could end up making art that's more universally enjoyable for people that they might have this slight perception difference. Where like for me, like I'm like, wow, I can see exactly what this is meant to be, but like that's not what everybody can see, and so it misses a huge amount of the audience.
Oh, that's interesting what you were saying. That's interesting. Well, Frank had a theory, and I or was it Frank or somebody had a theory that it was because it gave it a vintage feel or something that was completely accidental. Not like I wasn't going for that. It was like I just did what the Pantone said.
Yeah, like the old photographs. Like if you were like there's a Photoshop filter called sepia. That's a brown.
Right. Well, like, and I wanted it to have that look. But again, it was accidental. So I just think it's funny. The colorblind.
It's awesome. That's super cool.
I was like, maybe I should never have anybody color. I'll just color everything and we'll see what happens.
So it'd be funny if you did it without the Pantones and then release that as a special edition.
No. Why did he make the gunfire like bright dayglow green? I do actually have to fix a cover I did for Jonathan Hedrick because he liked the cover and he's like, interesting choice on the green gunfire. And I said, what? And I didn't check that one. I thought I was right. And I said, no, I'll fix that, dude.
That's funny. No, that's awesome though. But like that's the thing. It's like sometimes even in art, like what is it? Like conventions, like what was it? The sticky note. Like they were trying to make the world's strongest glue, and they made like the most reusable glue like possible.
Oh, for real? I didn't know that.
Sticky notes. Like the only reason they knew it was it dripped on a piece of paper, and then they were able to keep taking it on and off. And they're like, wait, what the heck? But they were trying to make the world's strongest glue. Yeah,
and they did the opposite.
Yep. And so that's the thing. It's like even that happens though, where like you accidentally make something unique. Like imagine the first green flames ever drawn because it was a cool look. it was drawn by somebody who's colorblind and they didn't even know. Like,
probably.
It's possible. So
probably tons of comic book characters that were drawn like
the Hulk was gray originally, and then they accidentally
Yep.
printed it green, and then they're like, I guess people like the green, let's stick with that.
and that is a beautiful accident. I mean, yeah, they brought it back later on with when he was what's his name, Joe something, right? There's a whole storyline with
I can't think of it.
yeah, he was gray again for a while, and then he went by a name. I can't remember it right now.
I do also remember there was one point because he did all of his names in alliteration: Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, a bunch of those like names like this. And because of that, there was one time I think he accidentally named him Bob Banner in one of the comics. It was something like that. Yeah, he just forgot the name. It was because it was Bruce Banner, and then it was some other B name for the first name, like Bobby Banner. But there's like one comic where he made that mistake. But that's the thing is, there's tons of reasons that's like cool. Like one is it's kind of funny. You get to see that this creator of great stories is can make mistakes too, as well as the fact that becomes like a collectible because it's the only one that says it. So that's why it's cool, like to see like the fact that we've met 2 colorblind artists in the last month is crazy. And then you mentioned several others, and it's like that's super interesting because like, maybe that's part of what led you to find art to be interesting to begin with. The fact that the fact that you draw, you can make incredible art even despite the lack of color.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was just reading comics since I was reading, and just started drawing Disney characters as vampires. So
I also just realized like halftones, or what is that? Is that what it's called? Right, the prints, the dots. It's halftones, right? Yeah. I almost wonder too if halftone prints are easier to visualize if you're colorblind, and if that's because
no, not for me.
No. Well, yeah, it depends. Yeah, I guess on the level. But that's super interesting. I was just wondering, like, too, like if that was ever because I think it was to save on printer, or maybe it was too difficult to lay double inks or something. I can't remember why they did halftones for printing.
Well, I just tell people when they commission me to do a cover, I just say, just to be clear, I don't color. And they're like, that's fine. Because there are, I mean, some of our peers, and then also, guys that I just admire greatly. I mean, I just because I see I'm sure I see the color differently than people who aren't colorblind. I can still see the skill, and I'm jealous. I'm like, God, I wish I could do that. It's so like Adi Granov or I'm trying to think. That's just one that comes to mind because his coloring is ridiculous.
I just realized that might even be so that whole green-blue idea. Obviously, that's not one that you're able to see, but maybe taking that idea and making a comic that does have something that even you can perceive color-wise, whether it's color or shading or darkness, as the usage of like this is clearly different than the other thing. Might be a good way to play on that. Even if it's color for other people too, but it's just a shade contrast if you're colorblind. Like it's just something cool I like to think about, like how do you capture that audience?
Well, it depends too. Like I use 2 different colorists depending on the vibe of the story. And for the past year, those are the only 2 colorists that I work with. Guy Herrmann works on Immortal Coil because I can see that it has a more robust color separation, like akin to what you would find in like X-Men, Fantastic Four. He's fantastic at what he does because that story has more of that feel. I want the colors to really pop in that story because it's epic. And Lorenzo's a colorist that I use at Rome, and he has a very muted, vintagey. Whenever I do more horror story, I mean, I would use him forever because I feel like it has that. He just does some creepy stuff. I don't know. I know that I'm not seeing the same color he does, but I can feel it. And I'm like, cool. Whatever it is you're doing, that works because I can feel it. Now, is it red? So I'll give you an example. Like, did a cover recently together. Now, I don't know what the color he did on the background. I can't even tell. He uses so many colors. I was like, I don't even know. But there are 3 depths to the cover. And the second depth wasn't popping enough. Now I can tell that. I can't tell what color he used in the background, but I know that there's the background, and there was a person, and there's these objects. So I needed to have these 3 depths, and the only way to really do that was by using color.
Yep.
That's his job, not mine. So, I'm like, I don't know what color to tell you, dude, but all I'm saying is make that person pop. Bring it out more. Don't make the background all one thing. Like whether it's a gradient or light, because I think in light a lot. And he showed me today, and hey, I don't know what colors they are, but he did it.
I don't know what he's doing, but I like it.
I don't know what that kid's up to.
Did you know that Mittens is colorblind?
The cat itself?
Yeah.
Did you wrote it as a colorblind character?
Yeah.
That's so funny, dude.
So the reason, one, the color in the book it's just cheaper. And then 2, so his like glasses that he wears,
yeah,
they're broke. I've yet to like really say anything about that.
They're
I think in the
broke?
3rd issue they mention it slightly.
Yeah, basically he's normally colorblind, and so the first 3 issues, all of the comics are in blue, or shades of blue. And then, the whole point is that the goggles allow him to see in color when needed, but they're broken.
Interesting.
But because everyone likes how it's so blue and everything, we're just gonna like stick with that for a while.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna be like fixed.
But there's like, I think there's one page that is in color, and it's a scene where he's not in it, and it's showing a different character.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting to me.
So we have
like
one-shot series that's of the Panda Bounty Hunter that we're going to be putting out next year, maybe. And that will be in color because Mittens isn't involved in that. It's just the panda and his story and stuff.
I just realized he's a colorblind cat carpenter. I like alliteration. It's fun.
Cool. So before we get going, where can people find you?
Even before that, I realized there was one thing that we brought up before this, and we didn't actually talk about it during the episode, but I just wanted to bring up, because we were talking about it, the fact that you were on that list of best new series on the Comic Crown for comic book resources.
Yeah.
And that was incredible. And it's so funny. The second you said it, I forgot that I saw your name or I saw the third comment, and I was like, oh my God. I'm like, that is awesome. It was funny. I saw the name and I'm like, oh, I know that name. And I didn't even realize what category it was under, because I was just kind of once I saw Orange Cone on there, I started skimming to see other names. I'm like, oh, I know that. And then I didn't look at the title it was under, and that is super impressive. And like you mentioned that it was you were the only new series that didn't have major like publishing money behind it.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. So I just wanted to congratulate you on that.
Well, I mean, I have to give credit to my buddy Gerald Lockhart, who, pointed that out to me. I didn't actually think about it until he said something, because I was just I remember I was in Italy at the time, and I got the message from Adam, and then they released the finalists. And so when Adam messaged me and told me I was in the top 5, I thought I would see, around the same sort of level, like, or close to it. So I, like maybe Travis would be in there, or I can't think, Charlie Stickney, or, Pat Shand, like this kind of stuff. I didn't really know how, look.
I just wanted to share it on the screen so people can
Pedestrian,
see
Sean Van Gorman, who's like a marketing genius.
Power Rangers.
But you're up there with the Ultimate Spider-Man. Like, that's crazy. Like,
so I open this up and I look and I go, okay, they made a mistake, dude. Like, and what's funny is that I didn't know I had to write a publisher. So I just made up that name. It's not based on Third Eye Comics, which is a huge sort of store, comic shop. I said Third Eye Press. That sounds good. And I mean, well, Sean Van Gorman was the pedestrian on there, Magma Comics. They don't have big publisher money, and I would say Sean's art and his ability to really market a book really catapulted. But he's also been doing it a long time. The thing I just felt insane about wasn't just like, okay, I'm the only crowdfunder on here. It's also that at the time this came out, I just had Immortal Coil #1. Only book I have. And so, yeah, but I remember I could tell my wife going, oh my God, Power Rangers and Ultimate Spider-Man. Like,
yeah,
well,
that's incredible.
But then it was Jared Lockhart, who said to me, he said, dude, all of us who crowdfund books are so inspired that we could have a book listed along with Oni and Boom and Marvel. He's like, that is motivator for crowdfunding is not a lower quality way to put books out. It is an official publishing service.
I was going to say, it's like it felt like for some people that basically the only way to make a huge amount of money on there is if you came from some big publisher, had a well-known name, and then you go on there and make tons of money, or you have like you take advantage of the big titty ladies, right? That's about it.
Yeah,
and it's
right.
But like for real though, like that is super impressive to be able to get on like. And it's cool too because I think that this is their first year doing this.
Yeah, it was a first.
They want this to be an annual one, and on the first year out, you're on there too. I think that's also impressive. Is that that means from the very get they were considering it, not like several seasons later where they're like, hey, maybe we should start including indie comics on here. It's like that.
Well, I'm sure there were. I mean, I'm sure there were. Because when the nominations get sent out, people are like posting, hey, I mean, I didn't even ask anyone to nominate it. I didn't, because I was still kind of like having imposter syndrome, and I was dealing with that, and I didn't want it. One of the things that kept me away from comics for a long time was feeling confident in promoting oneself, because you really have to. No one is going to believe in you more than you believe in you, not even your family. It's just that's because comics is, especially in America, it's still considered like a subcultural thing. In Europe, it's different. In Europe, I tell people what I do for a living, like, oh my God, you're not considered less than, well, maybe less than Leonardo da Vinci, but you're not considered less than something you would see
a different type of art
in the Modern Art Museum.
Yeah,
it's right. It's art.
Yep.
It is. The comic is art, and you can still buy comics at the grocery store, the drugstore, the tobacco shop. They're everywhere. And in America, we lost that. Like it's probably in the 80s, in the 90s when comic shops were taking off, and we were getting monopolized by distribution. So I'd like to see that come back in America, like. So the comics, however you're putting them out, feel more democratic and accessible and elevated, because some of the best stories you're going to find in a comic somewhere, like we were talking about that beforehand, like, you having mittens and ink and horror, like, I mean, that's awesome to be able to be more prolific. I will never do a kid's comic, but that's just me.
Dude, it's funny, that wasn't intended to be a kid's comic. What happened was the artist was like,
I shouldn't say kids. I'm sorry I say kids because
no, but it is now though. It went from like a regular story to, hey, you only swear one time in here. If we just dial back the violence and get rid of this.
He actually drew. There is a picture of him, and he's like orange or something, and he said shit. And then he's like, oh, yeah, you want to say shit. And we just remove that and get rid of the like murder, like with the space blasters. And
yeah. Turn blood to boop and you're good,
But I should say it's more accessible to different demographics, because there are adults who that's the kind of stories they also love to read. It. They like to, that's the kind of vibe they want to roll with, Horrors, that's too much for them. I don't want to see blood in my comic. I don't want swearing. I don't want sex.
The other big thing too is that in order to get like this is true in any form of art, but like once you're like 25, you've decided what music you're listening to the rest of your life, right? That's universally true. Everyone cuts off their you'll listen to other stuff, but like if you're like default, what am I going to listen to today? Whatever you were listening to by the time you're 25, that's it, right? And it's the same with most forms of art. There are what are they called? Tastemakers, right? People that tend to like follow the generations of music, but they're called tastemakers for a reason. There's so few of them. It's only a few people that do this. The mass majority of people, 25, whatever you liked then, that's all you like now. That's why every 10 years, every 20 years, the ads are all music from the generation that's now 30 from when they were.
Okay. It is a little bit of overgeneralization. But also, I don't know how old you all are. I mean, I turned 50 in like 2 months.
Yeah, look good for 50s. That's good.
Really? Because my 7-year-old calls me grandpa, but okay. And it's just because I work in comics, so I think that keeps you young. I think it keeps you young in spirit. You know, we have a certain buffoonery perhaps to us that allows us to be our youthfulness. But I feel like hitting sort of this mark 50, I'm kind of appreciating things I didn't appreciate.
But you're also a creator. That's what I mean. Like there's like in comparison, there's maybe 1 out of every 100 people might be a creator, and you know not all of them are good. So like it's this idea that there's a very small amount of people that will be willing to try new things. So one of the best ways to grow a fan base in any form of entertainment is to do it when they're younger. That's why like the Transformer movies were such big hits, because we all watched them as kids. And then we're like, yeah, I don't care if it's Michael Bay explosion. There's not really a good plot. I don't care. It's robots.
You watched them as a kid.
Yeah, do it. Like that's it, because it's nostalgia. And that's the thing is like that happens all the time.
Of course. Listen, I was coming of age with the Ninja Turtles. And I can watch those movies, those original ones, without
go ninja.
Like, it's so cringe, but we didn't have a lot to go on. You know, Dolph Lundgren running around as a Punisher with no skull on his chest. You know, I mean, there wasn't a lot to go on. So Ninja Turtles comes out with a movie, and it was like we had a blast, pizza party, whatever. So I can still watch those movies, and yes, it transports me sort of back to that time, like Goonies. Like, but that's also just a great story.
Oh my God, I saw something. Last thing, and then we should close up. But I saw a video where one of the kids from the Goonies, I think, is the guy that's who's the big guy from Jurassic Park. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, Newman.
Yes. Apparently in every
Knight, I think Ray Knight or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. In every movie he's in, he has like an homage to like his previous movie. So like he's wearing like the Hawaiian
same thing from
another one. He's wearing like the yellow jacket from the other. Like he keeps homaging himself.
I saw that just recently.
Yeah, I saw it too. It's like super interesting. That's made me think of that. But yeah, super cool. But anyways, yes. Now that we've tangented last time, and again, congratulations on that Comic Crown. But yes, where can people find you if they, seek you out?
Hiding in Greg's shower. Well, I'm on all of them except X. I don't deal with that, but G. von Stoddard. Sometimes G. von Stoddard art depends, but if you put in G. von Stoddard, I'm the only one. So Instagram, Facebook. Depends on what you're looking for. If you want to kind of see more in-depth posts or see what's coming next, or I do, Facebook is kind of where I probably socialize the most.
I was going to ask, where do you respond the most? Facebook?
Yeah.
All right, so everybody go bother him on Facebook.
Bother me on Facebook. Instagram is kind of like we were talking about the music and pictures. I treat it kind of like Tumblr in a way, like back in the day. Just, sometimes the black and white and then what it looks like in color, but that's what it's there for. It's not really like a place I socialize. But on Blue Sky, I'm even on TikTok, where I actually built an early fan base on.
Nice.
And made a lot of peers on there too, like friendships. But right now it's pretty much Facebook and Instagram.
Cool.
Well, thanks for coming on. And
Yeah, man. I've seen you guys before. You had I got to meet you more in depth at the virtual con.
Yeah.
You guys did. I had fun battling Brian Wolf over the trivia.
Yeah, that's not going to be a thing going forward because that was fun.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun, and hopefully I get to see you guys in person in Saratoga next year.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
All right.